I thought I'd make a video just to talk about random bullshit that has gone on in my life over the last 10, 20 years. One of the funniest stories I ever had was when I was working on my PhD. A friend of mine had accidentally utilized somebody's print quota. He sat down at a computer and didn't realize it was already logged in. And he started printing his homework. And when the paper came out and he went to get it, he thought the computer had made a mistake because it printed it out under somebody else's name. And the person's name was GIF4. And so he commented that he had GIFed this guy. I think he got tongue tied actually. I think what he meant to say was that he had gypped GIF, but he got a little tongue tied by that whole thing, and he just said that he had jiffed this guy. Um, okay, and when I was living in Rochester, I discovered, it's convenient to share your bills with your roommates, but I discovered that it could lead to a war. We had a landline. This was back before the days of smartphones. I don't think the iPhone was out yet, and so we had a landline phone, and everything was going well except that one month a student from China moved into the house. I'm from Taiwan, not from China. Um, and all of a sudden, our phone bill started showing calls to China, and we had a weird agreement of when the bill arrived, no matter when it was incurred, whoever was living in the house would split the bill however many ways, depending on how many people were there. It seemed like a good idea to avoid any sort of confusion or discussion, but everybody had to chip in. And I got so upset that I was paying for his phone calls. I started calling friends from all around the world just to kind of even the score. And then I realized that everybody was making massive phone calls just to even the score. That the end result was everybody was paying for phone calls that they couldn't afford. Oh, this is called a diner's dilemma, actually. Maybe you can read about that if you have a chance. But it was a very poor setup altogether. And it was a very bad idea. I also ran into another scam when I was in elementary school. When I was in second grade, I had a classmate, and we used to like to joke with each other. And one day he had dropped some money on the floor. It was five. It was a $5 bill, and according to him, I took it and I ran, and I hid it into my backpack or my locker or something. And he never saw it again. We had a discussion with the teacher, and I had promised to give him back $5, and then I never gave it back to him. And after second grade, apparently this happened toward the end of the second grade year, he and his family moved across town. I didn't see him until middle school. And then my first day at sixth grade, he comes running up to me and goes, Andrew, you owe me $5. And I couldn't figure out what it was about until he reminded me. And so I went home and I called his mom to see what had happened. And his mom said that she didn't remember anything like that. I couldn't remember anything like that either. And his mother had promised to tell him to just let it go. It's only $5. But being that we were young and stupid, he continued to ask me for $5, and it became like a joke almost. Speaking of minor scams like that, I in 2008, when at the end of the state quarters program, I collect coins. I was searching rules at quarters because I wanted to get lots of Hawaii coins because that was the very last state of the union. And I was showing my classmate how to search coins, and I had opened a roll of quarters, and it was short. Instead of 40 quarters, it had 38 quarters, and then a dime and a nickel. And we looked at the roll, and then my classmate commented that I had gotten nickeled and dimed on that roll, and it was just such a coincidence that it was a nickel and a dime. Oh, there was a time when I accidentally scammed a restaurant in Detroit. I used to fly through Detroit Airport a lot because on the way from Rochester, when I would go to one of the conferences, I would go through Detroit. And I used to be cheap. When I would eat out, I would look for excuses to not tip. I mean, I didn't want to just outright not tip. I would always sit down and look for things to complain about, even when there was nothing to complain about. And I think the waiter, he got the sense that I wasn't about to tip, and I had my stuff scattered around the table, and he must have looked at my boarding pass and realized that I was in a hurry, and he thought that I would give a tip just to be able to get out of there. So he didn't bring my check over, and I asked him for my check. He didn't realize I don't carry cash. That's the problem. And I kept asking for my check, and he's just talking on his phone. He won't put his phone down. He's talking in Spanish actually, and I kept saying, asking him for the check, and I showed him I need to go in like 5 minutes, and he didn't bring the check, and I left, and I was so worried that he was setting me up to scam him so he could report me to security. As we were boarding the plane, I had a ticket that was, I think, boarding zone 3 or something. But I rushed into the plane when they were boarding zone 1. I was in that big a hurry because I didn't know what the hell was going on. I didn't have cash on me, and so the whole flight from Detroit all the way to back to Rochester, I was worried that when I got off the plane in Rochester, that the police would be waiting for me. And I got off. I went to baggage claim. But as soon as I saw my bag, I took it and I ran because I didn't know what what this guy was trying to set me up for. And it turned out to be okay. And I guess I learned a valuable lesson to stop playing these not tipping games. So I used to do that a lot. When I would ride the taxi, I see when I was going to school and traveling for a conference, oftentimes I would turn in my receipt, but they they would let you fill in whatever you wanted for the tip. So if I didn't tip and I filled in that I tipped $10, that was an extra $10 in my pocket. That was a good amount of money compared to what I was making, and I often felt I deserved a bonus for giving a good talk at the conference. And one time I was riding a taxi, and which I was going to claim for reimbursement. And I was watching for all sorts of driving mistakes, if the driver ran a yellow light or didn't stop at a stop sign completely. I was about to complain about those things, and it just ruined the spirit of my trip. After I started complaining, I realized I'm not having fun anymore. And then eventually I discovered of I could just ride my bike to the airport. And then when I got to the airport, I would go up to a taxi, go, "Hey, can I have some blank receipts because I lost my receipt?" And so it was just crazy. Looking back at it, I should have enjoyed my trip more instead of playing these games. It wasn't even that much money. Altogether, in 4 years, I probably scammed like $200 at most. Um, my friend accidentally slandered me one time. He had a gambling problem. I was trying to get him to quit gambling, so I had threatened to break into his online poker account to steal his money. It was an empty threat. I had no idea how to do that, except maybe try to guess his password, which I wasn't about to try and do. Anyways, so one day he's about to go online to gamble when he realized he can't connect to the internet. And he was going to school at a different university. So my guess is he went to the computer lab at the university and he starts sending me really angry instant messages saying, "Andrew, what the fuck did you do to my internet connection?" And I had no idea what he was talking about. And he was already starting to tell all his friends. His friends were instant messaging me as well. And just being a good friend, I tried to problem solve for him. I asked him what company he had his internet with so I could call and find out. He was actually worried that his internet had cut him off for illegally downloading copyrighted stuff or for the gambling or for whatever the case is. But I called for him, and it turned out he forgot to pay his bill. It was that simple. And unfortunately, he had told so many friends before he found out what had happened, and it just became a very intractable story for me to retract, and oh well. I almost got turned away when I was traveling to Canada one time. I almost got turned away by border control. I had driven up to the border. I was going to a backgammon tournament in Canada. It was in Vancouver, Canada, British Columbia, and part of the reason I like going to events in general is to I call it going out to look for my future wife. I'm a little bit too honest about that. I tell all my friends that, hey, this Saturday I'm going to a tournament to go look for my future wife, or next summer I'm going to Amsterdam to compete in a computer gaming conference in order to look for my future wife. You'd all say that. And so I pull up to the border control, and the agent asked me the purpose of the trip. And being just exhausted from the trip, I didn't even think. I just said, "Oh, I'm gonna go look for my future wife." And he just had this puzzled look on his face. And I composed myself and told him about the tournament, and I actually still had the ad for the tournament on hand, and so I showed him. And it was good, but for a second I thought, oh my god, he's gonna turn me away, and I was okay with that. I mean, I wanted to see other parts of northern Washington anyway. If he had turned me away, I wouldn't have been too upset. It was just really crazy. Um, I had two occasions in recent times where I've accidentally pooped my pants. My last year at RIT, where I was working on my PhD, I had submitted a paper to a conference in Taiwan. I forget what, oh, AMAS. I forget what it stands for. Artificial Intelligence, Machine Learning, something like that. Oh, AAMAS. I gotta find out what it was. I can't remember. I just remember the acronym. But anyways, I submitted the paper and it got accepted, which was very nice. But I had promised the organizers another result before I go to Taiwan. And looking for the result, I had an error in my computer code. I just couldn't fix the error. And I've been looking for it for 2, 3 weeks. And all of a sudden, I find it. And I'm so relieved at finding it. I go, ah. And as I do that, I poop my pants. And the funny thing is, I was living in my office at the time. I didn't have a permanent home. I was living in the office. I was in the computer lab when this happened. So I had to go back to my office to grab some clothing to change in. And then I went to the gym where I could shower on campus, shower, change the clothes, and then I walked to the laundromat to wash. And I was so relieved at finding the result that it really didn't bother me so much. I just had a good day as a result. And 2 years ago, I pooped my pants again. I was working at Microsoft at this time, and I was starting to learn about machine learning. One night, I had a dream. In the dream, there was this toilet that was connected to this machine, and I was talking to the inventor of this device, and he told me if I poop into it, it could find out if I'm at risk for cancer or heart disease or among other diseases. And he told me that the way he had invented this machine was that he had collected millions of poop samples and followed the participants over time to see what diseases they had caught. And he had done machine learning to find out what kind of poop leads to what kind of diseases. And actually, in my mind, I have a good idea how that would look like in terms of algorithms. And that's why I believed it. And so I sat on the machine and I started to poop. And at that moment, I woke up and I realized that I had pooped my pants. Anyway, so I just have a lot of crazy stories in my life. Thanks for watching.